All right, you guys, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview and just to share your experience of premarital counseling with me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So first question, and whichever one of you wants to go first is fine. What led to your decision to seek therapy?
There was a number of reasons. First of all, it was definitely a good suggestion made by one of my friends. We're at that age right now where a lot of us, our group of friends, are getting married soon, getting engaged, and they had gone to counseling as well, and they suggested it would be a good experience for us. And also, me, myself, I've done just individual therapy on my own, just to help me get through school and other stress that I've had. And it did help me as an individual, but this was our first time doing it together as a couple. So I thought that would be good for the two of us to go through it before we get married.
Awesome. And what was your decision-making process, if it was the same or different?
Pretty similar, yeah. Our friend recommended it. So that meant a lot to me. And then also just reading data about marriages in general, that 50% end in divorce, but if you do marriage counseling, your chances are much better. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of data driven, so that made a big difference.
Statistics.
To me too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
As professionals, we are definitely into data and statistics.
Yes. So that was I was like, well, it must be worth it if it can make a significant difference. So
awesome. And again, either of you can just jump in and answer in whatever order. Is there anything you had doubts about that led to you not wanting to seek therapy or specifically working with me as a therapist?
So just therapy in general, I think we were pretty open to it, considering that, I've done it before, and also it was recommended by a friend. So that definitely put us at ease. However, like with anything that you're trying for the first time together, there is sometimes a little bit of a fear that we through therapy you might be exposing some issues that weren't there before, and then with that being out in the open, was that going to cause more emotional stress? Was it going to cause resentment? So I think those are some natural fears that we had, or I had, and I think anybody would before opening up into hours of talking about issues and diving in. And so I think that's can be scary at times.
Yeah, especially when you're going into premarital counseling and everything's pretty good and you don't want to rock the boat too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
rocking the boat. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it, because I think that we were in a pretty good place. There were times where if we were say fighting, like it might have been good to go to therapy to resolve some issues.
Yeah,
but we had kind of resolved it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
But
now we're even in much better place.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel even more secure
Yeah.
going into this than I did previously.
Yeah. As opposed to kind of enlisting therapy as a way to dig ourselves out of a hole, it was more like we were kind of, floating on the surface, and then we were just able to use therapy to build and just uncover any, you just kind of tie up some loose ends that we hadn't looked at, before marriage. I mean, we've been together for 5 years, so it might have been different if it was at the 2-year mark. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Doubts. I guess, I didn't know how structured it would be, and I really liked that it was really structured, and we went through, the questionnaire and each important topic we needed to talk about. I didn't really know what couples therapy was. I thought maybe we would just get in a fight in front of you, and then you would tell us
judge you harshly.
Yeah, No, not take sides, but I don't know. I didn't know, what the structure would be, and it turned out to be, really productive.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Premarital is, well, really all therapy with me is pretty structured, but premarital especially.
Yeah.
So third question, what did you guys find? You've already alluded to this a little bit, but what did you find as a result of working with me?
I'll kind of just, I wrote a few things down here. Let's see. For me, confidence building, organization, acceptance, learning about applying a work ethic to a relationship, understanding norms, like basically what's normal in a relationship and versus what's not normal. Sometimes you don't know because you don't have anything compared to.
Yeah.
Communicating with various methods. I think we talked a lot about love languages, and you gave us assignments based on studying like the love languages. Mm-hmm. We had an idea of what that was, but you kind of confirmed it. And then also just an understanding of ourselves as individuals, and then using that knowledge to apply to the relationship between two people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're really different. We have different religious upbringings, so that was a really big issue that you definitely helped us work through big time. And then just kind of understanding each other better, like the personality assessment and kind of understanding the way we look at things and how it's different and how that can be an asset or a point of conflict and how to work through it when it is a point of conflict. So that I think has been helping a lot. Help me understand you a little better.
Amazing. Was there a moment, and if there wasn't, that's fine, but was there a moment that you knew you had made the right choice in therapists or even just in seeking premarital counseling at all?
I think there was definitely a moment. I don't know if it was the first session or the second, but it was early on. We had the hour and we brought up a lot of good topics that kind of got the ball rolling. But even though we had talked, all three of us, for an hour after our session ended, we continued that conversation and we talked for another 2 hours on our own and covered, we kind of just took all the topics that we talked about during the session and then expanded on them together. And it was sometimes it was uncomfortable, sometimes it was stressful, but I think we were able to address some things or issues that we may not have without it. And I think at that moment, knowing our session had ended, but we kept it going almost to the point of exhaustion. It really kind of showed us that, wow, we had been talking for 3 hours nonstop. I think that means something.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of things we need to get off our chest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think, after the first session, I was like, oh, this is really helpful. This is legit. We definitely kept talking afterwards, and we realized we're alike in a lot of ways, but we're different in a lot of ways too that we didn't really work through.
Same, but different.
Yeah. So, even just thinking about things like, oh, our religion's different, but what are we gonna do when we have kids?
Yeah.
We can't just wing that. You have to kind of plan it out.
Yeah, I mean, I like to wing a lot of things.
Yeah.
I figured we would just wing it, but
I advised against that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, you guys got to figure this stuff out.
Yeah. And that's something we wouldn't have really pushed ourselves to work through on our own if you hadn't, been there to ask the real questions.
Okay, awesome. So next question, what specifically did you like most about working with me and just premarital counseling in general?
You can go first.
Well, a lot of things. I think we were just really happy that we found you.
Yeah.
Just off the bat.
It's just like luck.
I think it was I feel very lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, just in general, you're very friendly and you're honest, but then you're professional and very organized. And we can tell that you put in the time, and that time is very meaningful to you, so it becomes meaningful to us.
Mm-hmm.
You have really like fantastic work ethic, and because of that, we can tell that because you're putting the work in, that it kind of motivates us to work just as hard.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if we brought up a topic and you mentioned to us that, that you would send us more links or an email, even just a more supplemental material. Even if it was our session was over, you would kind of go the extra mile on a day during the week, even after our session was over, to follow up, ask questions through email, send more links, send more material, and what do you call it? Kind of keeping tabs and keeping track. And I think going the extra mile, it definitely says a lot. Also, because we're scientists, we like data. We're very data driven. we're very we like to practice evidence-based care. And I feel like we got lucky that you practice the same way, because you just feel more secure about the advice. It's less opinion and more facts. And I think that's a great way to build on a relationship, because it just feels more accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, just a great mix of everything you would want in a healthcare professional. The personality, but also
super caring and easy to connect to and easy to open up to. It just felt like just natural. Yeah.
Thank you guys. That's so lovely. Okay. I feel like you covered. I'm going to jump around a little bit, so I apologize if this messes you up with your predetermined answers. I'm going to skip to 7. So what would you tell somebody who has never seen a therapist and is debating whether or not to seek therapy?
Oh, well, I would say there is definitely some hesitation and some stigma when it comes to mental health and just therapy in general, especially for men. And in marriage, there's sometimes a guy involved. And then not to say that women, may not want to do therapy, but just in general, I think if you have, it's kind of like going to the doctor. If you have a problem or an illness, you have to seek out treatment and not be afraid to seek out treatment. And even if you don't have an issue, it doesn't mean that you don't have to go to the doctor. You still have to go to at least prevent issues in the future. So it's kind of like preventative care as well as reactive care. So that would be my advice to someone is whether you have problems or not, there's not much that you can lose by going to therapy. I feel like it's something that you can only gain from.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I've never personally had therapy before, but I think what sold me, or just the way to think about it, was that we're about to spend the rest of our lives together, and we're going to invest in the wedding. We've already invested in a ring. So one of the things that I was a little hesitant on is the cost, but I mean, if you are going to invest all these things, you should probably invest in the actual relationship too.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
So, that's a very good point.
Yeah, so I thought of it like an investment in sort of ways. What I was hoping to get out was sort of tools for us to use together to create a healthy relationship, which, you know, isn't easy.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
You're really smart.
Thanks, honey.
She is. You got a smart cookie there. And then what would you guys share with somebody who has doubts about online therapy versus in person?
Oh, it's convenient from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
I mean, who would do you have Amazon Prime? It's like, what? why would you go in person? It's so much better online. You can do it on your own schedule. You do it in work break. You could do it after work. You can wear sweatpants.
It was
on the bottom and there's no reason why you would have to go in person that I can think of. I
one thing that I think is underrated is the fact that since we have a computer screen, when it's time to pull up the tables and graphs and charts based on our questionnaires and personality test scores, you were able to put it up on the screen for us to see, and we can both see it on both sides. We can visualize. That visualization is really important, and I'm a very visual learner. So versus just telling me that I'm this personality or that she's this personality, I can actually see which area on the graph is shown, and it's that is something that's very digital about this conversation. I've never experienced that in other types of therapy where you're in person, but it's a lot of just verbal verbal communication as opposed to visual.
That's a good point.
Yeah, the screen share is good because then if there are documents you're looking at, we both can still look at them even though we're not actually together in person. Awesome. Okay, last question. Would you recommend working with me, and if so, why?
Oh, 100%. For sure. Just really easy to connect with, talk to, and professional, brilliant. I can't say enough positive things. It was just such a good experience.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I thought it was an amazing experience, and I'm just very impressed by your abilities, your knowledge, the way that the format was set up. I thought it was very organized from beginning, middle to end. I think in order to be good and great, you definitely have to be prepared, and the preparation you can tell was there. But a lot of people can prepare, but there are other details that I wasn't really impressed by. Was in real time during our conversations, we would bring up issues or topics, and it would get uncomfortable, but you were able to kind of reel us back in the heat of the moment, which sometimes you can't prepare for. You can't always prepare for emotions, and I think you were still able to remain calm and come up with quick solutions to fix whatever issue that we were having in the moment. And I think that was really helpful, because sometimes you say a lot of things and you'll hold on to it for a couple of days and think, oh, I should have said that, or I wish I knew the answer to that. But a lot of the times I felt like you were able to come up with really good advice on the spot. And I was really appreciative of that.
and just really accessible. Like I feel really lucky that we found you, because I feel like we can always come back to you and check in with you if we ever, I just feel like you're really there for us. So
I absolutely am, and I would be more than happy to help anytime. Well, thank you both so much. This was such a great interview and so helpful for people who are going to be listening that just may have doubts about therapy in general or premarital counseling especially. And I think it's so great that you addressed the investment that we make in rings and weddings and all kinds of stuff, and how important it is to invest in the actual relationship versus just all the steps to getting into the relationship. So yeah, thank you both so much for sharing your perspective. And yeah, just thank you.
of course.